Good evening, everyone. To open our meeting tonight, Chardell, will you please announce the first hymn?
Hymn number 40. Come, ye disconsolate, where'er ye languish. Here health and peace are found, life, truth, and love. Here bring your wounded hearts, here tell your anguish. Earth has no sorrow, but love can remove. Hymn number 40.
If you'd like to follow along with the readings tonight, please go to our website, and from the home page, you'll find the link to the live broadcast. Click on that and follow it through to the Wednesday testimony meeting, and there you'll find the text of the readings. The theme for tonight is the Christian Science Textbook, and the readings will now be given by Gary.
I will read from the Bible. Deuteronomy. Know therefore this day, and consider it in thine heart, that the Lord, He is God, in heaven above, and upon the earth beneath. There is none else. Thou shalt keep therefore His statutes, and His commandments, which I command thee this day, that it may go well with thee, and with thy children after thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days upon the earth, which the Lord thy God giveth thee forever. John. Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. And a certain man was there, which had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lie, and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, another steppeth down before me. Jesus saith unto him, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed, and walked. Jesus saith, Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very works' sake. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another Comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him. But ye know him, for he dwelleth with you, and shall be in you. These things have I spoken unto you, being yet present with you. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. And when he is come, he will reprove the world of sin, and of righteousness, and of judgment. Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. Revelation. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head. And his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open. And he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot upon the earth. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go, and take the little book, which is open in the hand of the angel, which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel, and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it, and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand, and ate it up. And it was in my stomach, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, My belly was bitter. Romans. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus hath made me free from the law of sin and death. I will read correlative passages from the Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures and from Prose Works by Mary Baker Eddy. In 1866, while living in Lynn, Massachusetts, Mrs. Eddy met with a severe accident, and her case was pronounced hopeless by the physicians. There came a Sunday morning when her pastor came to bid her goodbye before proceeding to his morning service, as there was no probability that she would be alive at its close. During this time, she suddenly became aware of a divine illumination and ministration. She requested those with her to withdraw, and reluctantly they did so, believing her delirious. Soon, to their bewilderment and fright, she walked into the adjoining room, and they thought I had died and that it was my apparition, she said. From that hour dated her conviction of the principle of divine healing, and that it is as true today as it was in the days when Jesus of Nazareth walked the earth. I felt that the divine Spirit had wrought a miracle, she said, in reference to this experience. How, I could not tell. But later I found it to be in perfect scientific accord with the divine law. From 1866 to 69, Mrs. Eddy withdrew from the world to meditate, to pray, to search the Scriptures. During this time, the Bible was my only textbook. It answered my questions as to the process by which I was restored to health. It came to me with a new meaning, and suddenly I apprehended the spiritual meaning of the teaching of Jesus, and the principle and the law involved in spiritual science and metaphysical healing. In a word, Christian Science. Mrs. Eddy came to perceive that Christ's healing was not miraculous, but was simply a natural fulfillment of divine law, a law as operative in the world today as it was 1900 years ago. My first writings on Christian Science began with notes on the Scriptures. I consulted no other authors and read no other book but the Bible for about 3 years. I could not write these notes after sunset. All thoughts in the line of scriptural interpretation would leave me until the rising of the sun. Then the influx of divine interpretation would pour in upon my spiritual sense as gloriously as the sunlight on the material senses. It was not myself, but the divine power of truth and love, infinitely above me, which dictated Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. I have been learning the higher meaning of this book since writing it. Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures is a complete textbook of Christian Science, and its metaphysical method of healing is as lucid in presentation as can be possible, under the necessity to express the metaphysical in physical terms. There is absolutely no additional secret outside of its teachings, or that gives one the power to heal. But it is essential that the student gain the spiritual understanding of the contents of this book in order to heal. The genuine Christian Scientist will tell you that he has found the physical and spiritual status of a perfect life through his textbook. The textbook of Christian Science maintains primitive Christianity, shows how to demonstrate it, and throughout is logical in premise and in conclusion. The earnest student of this book, understanding it, demonstrates in some degree the truth of its statements and knows that it contains a science which is demonstrable when understood and which is fully understood when demonstrated. The student of this book will tell you that his higher life is the result of his conscientious study of science and health in connection with the Bible. The still, small voice of scientific thought reaches over continent and ocean to the globe's remotest bound. The inaudible voice of truth is, to the human mind, as when a lion roareth. It is heard in the desert and in dark places of fear. It arouses the seven thunders of evil and stirs their latent forces to utter the full diapason of secret tones. Then is the power of truth demonstrated, made manifest in the destruction of error. Then will a voice from harmony cry, "Go and take the little book. Take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey." Mortals, obey the heavenly evangel. Take divine science. Read this book from beginning to end. Study it. Ponder it. It will be indeed sweet at its first taste when it heals you. But murmur not over truth if you find its digestion bitter. I should blush to write of science and health with key to the Scriptures as I have, were it of human origin, and were I, apart from God, its author. But as I was only a scribe, echoing the harmonies of heaven in divine metaphysics, I cannot be supermodest in my estimate of the Christian Science textbook.
We will now have a moment of silent prayer and then follow by repeating together the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever.
We will now sing hymn number 74. I will read the second verse of this hymn. Go, take the little open book from out the angel's hand. The word of truth is there for all to read and understand. What though the seven thunders roll? That still small voice shall make thee whole. Hymn number 74. Good evening and welcome to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. This is our weekly Wednesday evening testimony meeting for Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019. Welcome one and all. All of our meetings, classes, and services are broadcast live to the public through live streaming over the internet through our website, as well as through our YouTube channel. In addition to that, we also offer a teleconference so that you can call up on your telephone, listen, and participate. People from all over the world have found our church, and we're thankful for each and every one of you who have done so. Got to put in a few words for our website. We have a wonderful website, plainfieldcs.com, and we have so much in the way of healing and inspiring material for your reading, your study, and listening, etc. I would like to encourage everyone to browse through our entire website. And I would like to point out a couple of items that we're now featuring on the home page of our website. One of them is an article entitled Leaving the Past by Louise Knight Wheatley. I think we've all had to do this at one point in time when wrestling with things that have happened to us in the past or we've done in the past. We've got to find a way to move on. Read this article. It's very, very helpful and instructive. And I know this has been announced before, but I feel I need to announce it again. It's our magazine, Love is the Liberator, for the month of September. It features Gilbert Carpenter Jr. and Sr., and there's so much really wonderful material in this magazine. I encourage you to read through it. Join us every Sunday, including this coming Sunday. We start on Sundays at 10 o'clock in the morning with our roundtable discussion. We follow that with our church service at 11 o'clock. And we also offer a Sunday school for children, which meets every Sunday at 11 a.m. This Sunday school has its own teleconference. What that means is that your child can attend our Sunday school simply by picking up the telephone and dialing the number. So call up the church, we'll give you the number for the Sunday school, and we would love to welcome your child there. And one more comment about Bible study. The next Bible study is October 12th, Saturday. That's not this Saturday, but it's the following Saturday. And it starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. So check out the website for the Bible study questions and join us on Saturday, October 12th at 10 a.m. for a very lively discussion about a topic on the Bible. I will now read from the Church Manual by Mary Baker Eddy, the section entitled Testimonials. Glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's, St. Paul. Testimony in regard to the healing of the sick is highly important. More than a mere rehearsal of blessings, it scales the pinnacle of praise and illustrates the demonstration of Christ, who healeth all thy diseases. This testimony, however, shall not include a description of symptoms or of suffering, though the generic name of the disease may be indicated. Now, for those of you who give a testimony tonight, we kindly request that you keep it within 4 minutes. This will give everybody a chance to share what they've come to offer this evening. And for those of you who are on the teleconference, when you're ready to give a testimony, please press the star button twice. But keep in mind that when you do so, we're going to be able to hear you as well as any other sounds that your telephone may pick up. So please be in a quiet place. And I will call on each of you one at a time by name. And our meeting tonight is now open for sharing testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. Yesterday it was suggested that I do some specific work on thinking about harmony in our national government. Short time after it, I went in to open up the daily message on our calendar, and what should I find by Herbert Hughes? But, quote, mind makes its own adjustments of all pressure and substances and harmoniously and perfectly. Quote closed. How glorious that started my day. And as you can probably guess, I spent a very productive day on study on harmony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie from California.
The name of Jerry from Gary from California. Go ahead. Barry from California. Go ahead.
Thank you. As a child, I attended a Christian Science Sunday school. In it, we were taught the books of the Bible, the commandments, and the Beatitudes, and we also read the lesson. One Sunday, the lesson was from the book of Revelation about the woman with the little book. It was not discussed. We were just reading the lesson out loud. When that part was read, I remember thinking, that must be Mary Baker Eddy. I couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old at the time. It seemed obvious it was Mary Baker Eddy since I was in a Christian Science Sunday school and it was in the lesson, and she was the only woman I knew in Christian Science with a book. And so it was revealed to me at that time who she was, and I accepted it. Well, fast forward to the 1990s. I was a member of a branch church, and a book by Bliss Knapp called Destiny of the Mother Church was published by the board of directors. It caused great controversy because it contained what had been revealed to me as a child about Mary Baker Eddy. Well, I was shocked at the controversy because I thought everyone knew what I knew. Who else would the woman be if not Mary Baker Eddy? And this was, I think, the beginning of more errors in the church being exposed to me. The manual, incorrect manual, the science and health that was used, etc. A lot of animal courage, not a lot of moral courage in the church. And I eventually withdrew my membership with all of it. One of the daily duties in our manual refers to our duty to our leader. And it ends with, by our works we shall be judged, and justified or condemned. I know more and more my revelation that I received as a little child is true and is justified. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne from Florida, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Gary, for those wonderful readings. I'm very grateful for the sense of discipline that the practitioner here is instilling in my thought and action. I had left church for many years and thought that just reading the lesson daily and turning to God only when I wanted a favor granted was practicing Christian Science. I was living a very undisciplined life, and it showed forth in a lot of things. Weight gain, a social drinking habit, frequent gambling at the casino, and ultimately a severe accident. Since coming back to Plainfield Church and working with a practitioner here, I have been able to stop the gambling and drinking habits. I now pray before eating so I'm not compulsively shoving food in my mouth. I'm keeping and enjoying doing a daily watch. I'm spending more time studying Mrs. Eddy's writing, and I'm learning to ask God more before barging ahead and doing anything. This is monumental for me because I've always been up and down, inconsistent about everything in the past. Recently, several days in a row, I've opened to hymn number 322, and its second verse says, Lord, may thy truth upon the heart now fall and dwell as heavenly dew, and flowers of grace in freshness start, where once the weeds of error grew. Thanks to the help of a practitioner here, I'm learning a deeper discipline, obedience to righteousness, to truth, which is helping me remove many weeds of error in my life. It's a wonderful ongoing journey, and I'm grateful to be here and do it. It couldn't have happened anywhere else. I'm so grateful to Mary Baker Eddy for discovering Christian Science, and for giving us this wonderful way of life. I'm grateful to be part of this church.
Thank you. Nancy from New Jersey, go ahead.
Good evening. I wish to express my gratitude for the service this evening, the beautiful readings, and the music. I'm so grateful for all that I am learning here and from attending the Bible studies, the roundtables, and for the dedicated and loving support and teachings of my practitioner. Although I have always tried to share what I understand about God's love for us with others, these classes have not only strengthened my desire to share these truths, but also taught me to be alert and not be taken in by the picture that is being held before me. Last week, as I was having a conversation with a very close friend, she became very distraught about several difficult challenges that she was facing. Now, in the past, we had many great conversations about the one divine mind, and I've shared with her many of the truths that I'm learning in Plainfield, and also have given her some of the articles from our website, which she welcomed wholeheartedly. But this time, she could not be consoled, and I found myself starting to get worried about her and drawn into the wrong picture. I was grateful to recognize what was happening, and I knew that this was mortal mind trying to pull me in. I also knew that I needed to speak with my practitioner regarding this, as I would be working with this the next morning and was still having some difficulty separating myself from the situation. My practitioner reminded me that although it is right to be loving and supportive, that we should not give or let our oil be taken from us. Then she asked me if I was watching a soap opera on television and all this drama was going on, when it was over, would I believe that it was real? Of course not. This not only made me laugh, but instantly broke the mesmerism. The heaviness I was feeling was lifted up. What a great and practical way to see through mortal mind and its soap opera scenarios. The next morning, I worked with my friend for several hours in an atmosphere of harmony and love, and I could see that she had been lifted up also. I'm so deeply grateful to be able to see God's law of harmony at work, for my practitioner's support, and for all that is given to us and taught in this church to use daily in our work and prayers. I'm very grateful for this service and to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Day from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. While speaking to a friend recently about a problem she's having with an event she's planning, I realized by her admittance of the habit that I also used to plan things out or try to achieve certain goals or results. And when things weren't going to work out right, I would turn to God out of hopelessness and desperation. I've heard many people over the years who've become discouraged with what they're trying to do say things like, well, it's in God's hands now, or I'm just going to give it up to God out of frustration. I'm grateful to have learned through my study of Christian Science in this church that turning to God first is the only right way to approach any situation or task. I've learned to turn to God for guidance while thanking Him for what He's already done before attempting to complete anything. And I'm more grateful that when I haven't begun a process by doing so, I'm able to realize it in time to get back on track in prayer. Working this way always brings about the right results through the right process of unfoldment. And I'm thankful to have learned to truly mean it when I say, Father, thy will be done. Because what He does is always best. Thank you so much for tonight's readings and for all the testimonies given so far. I'm very grateful for everything that I have learned and am still learning in this church that's changing my life. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Dave from Florida, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Last weekend, the night before we were due to leave New Jersey and head back to Florida, I started feeling ill, like I was coming down with something. So I asked a practitioner for help. She told me to study Science and Health, pages 390 to 393. These pages contain what are often referred to as the command statements. The first statement is, when the first symptoms of disease appear, dispute the testimony of the material senses with divine science. Well, I made sure I was doing that. The practitioner also suggested that I listen to some of the recordings on our church website. So we listened to one of the Sunday roundtables, and it was very helpful as well. Within a couple hours, I was completely fine, and of course, the next day, we were able to make the trip as planned. I was grateful for this. I'm grateful for Christian Science and to be a member of this church where we have the healing practitioners to turn to, and also for our website, which contains innumerable items that we can turn to when we need help or if we just want to study and learn more. Christian Science, when applied as Mrs. Eddy intended, can heal the world, and this church is doing just that. I'm grateful to be part of it, and also I want to say thank you for those really great meetings tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I am very grateful tonight for the purpose and the place I have gained by being a member of this church and studying Christian Science. I was thinking back on my life before God brought me to Plainfield in 2013, and while there were some good parts, there was entirely too much needless strife and utter hopelessness. And then came this dark transition time after I seemingly lost everything I had. And while being unable to see any way forward, I called out to God and He brought me here. I know there are so many people right now who feel the way I did back then, who feel that there is no discernible way forward. It gives me great joy to know that God is already telling them how to get through that dark time and find their real purpose and place in working for Him. What God has provided for me in Christian Science and being a member of this church, He's made available to everyone. We can even see His work stretching forth around the world, meeting people's needs everywhere. I feel such joy every day, waking up to do this work and being a part of this mission. What a constant blessing it is to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Chardell.
Good evening, and thank you for those very wonderful readings and our beautiful music. I am very happy to be here and give thanks for a family healing. I think I first heard about standing in the gap at a roundtable discussion, and that's from Ezekiel 22:30. It stayed with me. And then when an angry young family member stopped communicating with us, first I told him that I would always love him. But I didn't know how to pray for him and for the situation at first because he did not want to have any part of us. Then I remembered I could stand in the gap for him and others. I prayed this way for a long, long time. And not long ago, he got back in touch with us and asked for forgiveness for his behavior. I, in turn, asked him for his forgiveness if I had hurt him in any way. We communicate now through texting because he lives in another city. I am so grateful for the readings last week and the teaching testimony that restated that the mind of Christ is in every one of us, and we can hear God's voice. How wonderful is our God. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Dale from Virginia, go ahead.
Thank you so much for those readings on our textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. How grateful I am to have this book, along with the Bible, both given to us by God to teach us and to lead us to Him. I'm also grateful for the September issue of Love is the Liberator. We owe so much to Mary Baker Eddy and to the early workers who were steadfast in preserving the truth of our leader's mission, her revelation. Through their writings, we learn how this science was demonstrated in Mrs. Eddy's home and what our duty is today. Also, there's an excellent article on page 15 entitled Possess Courage by author X. It's taken from an 1884 Christian Science journal, which was extremely helpful to me. It's straightforward and clear. And this issue of The Liberator is on the carousel right on the front page of our website. I'm so grateful for everything that's given to us through this church, through the outreach to the world to share this truth of this Christ truth to the world. We are truly blessed here, and I'm very happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead.
Late this spring, a truck ran into the side of our house and garage. Since then, there has been ongoing work occurring, and this has been a real learning experience for me and has shown God's care and omnipotence in so many ways. I've learned the importance of patience and persistence and knowing all will be taken care of in God's time. I'm very grateful to my loving practitioner who has stayed with me throughout and has corrected my thinking so many times. How true it is that trials are proofs of God's care. I'm very grateful to Christian Science, my practitioner, and this church, and I'm happy to be here this evening.
Thank you. Shahidat from Maryland, go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for those readings. I am very grateful for Christian Science and for our textbook. I am most thankful to have been raised by a parent that was led to Christian Science shortly after immigrating to this country, and therefore I had the privilege of growing up attending Christian Science Sunday school. On the walls of every CS church I ever attended as a child and throughout my teenage years was a quote from our textbook that divine love always has met and always will meet every human need, from our leader, Mary Baker Eddy. There was a time a few years back when I was living in Baltimore, Maryland, away from my family, when I found myself between jobs, a refrigerator that was as empty as my bank account. I was in dire need and reached out to God, and my need was met in a way I couldn't have ever imagined. An acquaintance who had a farm brought me a surplus of potatoes from their harvest. And for weeks, I boiled, fried, baked, and stewed those potatoes and never went hungry. One day, as the potato supply was dwindling, I was on the way to the grocery store with the little money I had left, and I tripped and stumbled. And as I picked myself up from the ground, I noticed a $20 bill. I picked up that bill and added to the money I had in my pocket, and I was able to get a decent grocery haul. I'll always remember this incident as a time when I was in dire need, and my need was met by God. I am so thankful for Christian Science and to be able to be here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for the readings tonight and the beautiful music. I'd like to express my gratitude for all the prayers and learning that goes on here at the Plainfield Church that is changing my life. A while ago, on returning home after a Sunday service, my college-age son asked if I could take him to a medical clinic. He had severe symptoms of a sore throat and had it for a couple days and was also feeling lethargic. I had several things to do for church, but was willing to take him, and I did let him know. I had a quote that had been given to me by my practitioner here it's a promise in the Bible from Psalm 138:8. Quote, "The Lord will perfect that which concerneth me." End quote. I had also been feeling the uplift from the service and of being around all those wonderful God's people. I always found work for this church a blessing. It's very different than any place I had been. There's such unselfish love for God and mankind. Well, in about an hour, my son was feeling better and thought he would be okay not going. And then he continued to improve throughout the day. And the next day, he no longer had any symptoms of what he was suffering from. And I'm very grateful for that healing, but also the uplift and the care and the good that comes from participating and being at this church. I would like to express my gratitude for Christ Jesus' teaching, Mary Baker Eddy, and all she did and sacrificed so we could have this science and this beautiful church that carries it on. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol.
I'm awfully grateful for that little book that Mrs. Eddy left for us. I'm very grateful for this church. I was raised in Christian Science, but never knew how to live it until I came to this church. And when I came here, I was expecting my first child. And I spoke with a practitioner because I was a little apprehensive. And the practitioner said to me, "When you flex the muscle of your arm, does that hurt?" I said, "No." And she said, "Well, there's no reason why you should feel pain through any muscles. And that's not God's plan." And then the practitioner said to me, "And how about when a rose opens? Does it strain? Is it problematic? Or does it just open naturally?" I said, "Yeah, it just opens naturally." So she said, "That's the way a Christian Science birth acts." And it just made so much sense to me that there's nothing to be afraid of and that everything was going to go well. Well, I had a completely painless childbirth. I was just amazed. The doctors and nurses were quite surprised, and it was just a most beautiful, harmonious experience. And it was, of course, all due to practitioner help and to Christian Science. I'm very grateful to God for this church and grateful for this wonderful way of life. And thank you for those readings. They were really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gary, for the beautiful readings and the powerful citations. I'm so grateful tonight for Christ Jesus in how he so made clear what man is. And because of his faithfulness to that truth of what God's children are, went everywhere seeing rightly and healing made all the manner of sickness and diseases that was brought to his attention. Through Mary Baker Eddy's wholehearted following of what Jesus did, she has given us in our textbook and all her writings what we must follow in order to clearly see our true being, to see our spiritual self, our wholeness, and the identity that we must own. On page 15 of Miscellaneous Writings, the article New Birth, she gives us our starting point, how we should begin claiming our spiritual godlike self. A quote from there, she says, "Here then is the awakening from the dream of life in matter to the great fact that God is the only life, that therefore we must entertain a higher sense of both God and man." And then from her precious book, Science and Health, the chapter on Science of Being, page 283, she encourages with these words. As mortals begin to understand spirit, they give up the belief that there is any true existence apart from God. I know that for years, I never even considered to admit this higher sense of myself. I, like many, still held on to the material sense of being, exactly what our learning should be guiding us out of. It is all these statements, that so many that she has given us, pondered and applied daily, that help us gradually become keenly aware of our spiritual wholeness. How very true, as was read, that it is the conscientious study of science and health in connection with the Bible that tell us of our higher life. I am so grateful for this because I know that there is nowhere that I could have come to this understanding. So grateful for all the testimonies, the whole service, and happy to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few emails to read. First from Kansas City. It so happened that just at the right time, divine love led me to your beautiful church, because at Plainfield there is a wealth of knowledge about how to ascend the hill of the Lord in practice and demonstration, how to counteract the seeming attack of Satan, who would hold God's word in contempt and cause even the elect to be deceived. Signing up for the watches at Plainfield and participating in the 3 weekly watches with the church has helped me gain the fuller understanding of spiritual truth that I've required to continue my journey spiritward and experience the peace which passeth all understanding. Through the books, prayers, conversations, articles, and resources offered at Plainfield, I'm gaining new tools so that I can reach a higher level in scientific demonstration. The workers at Plainfield have helped me not to fear, but to stand porter at the door of thought. May we continue to watch and work faithfully under the rod of our leader's demonstration. And then this is someone new. I'm not sure where he was from. He said, I wanted to take time to thank Christian Science. I have been praying for people for 25 years and deliverance when needed. Healing has been not what I would like it to be, and I have been using your teachings on myself. The ringing in the ears has much improved. I'm a student of the Word of God. I seek truth. I have watched your teachings on YouTube, and I have ordered Mrs. Eddy's books. Thank you again. And then England. Just a line to thank you all very much for the recent Bible study on John chapter 9. I was very grateful to have light shed on 2 passages that I have struggled with. Verse 3, where Jesus says of the blind man that neither the man nor his parents have sinned, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. And also verse 4, where Jesus speaks of doing God's work while it is day. Since this discussion at the Bible study, these words make a lot more sense to me, and I thank you so much. My gratitude and sincere thanks to Plainfield for all you do. And it's so good to hear how your internet presence is reaching to so many people all around the world. I was very grateful to hear those readings tonight about our textbook. It reminded me of 2 significant things. One was Benjamin, when he was in Nigeria, and he read Science and Health for the first time. And I remember then after he came back here, and I was talking to him about the experience, he was so excited, and he said, no person could have written this. I mean, it was so radical and so healing, and he got it. He got it in that first reading. And So I thought, well, that was so wonderful that he could perceive this. And Mrs. Eddy has said, and you heard it read tonight, that she was a scribe under orders writing the textbook. And she also said to read this book is to hear the voice of your Father. And I think it was Bicknell Young who said the book is like our biography of us. It tells us who and what man is and our relationship to the Father and how the Christ heals and still does heal. And then, too, I remember, and some of you know this story, but my family first came into Christian Science when my mother was diagnosed with cancer by a medical physician. And at that time, she was a seeker of truth, and she lived in an old Victorian home in Plainfield. And I think she was clearing up some things in the attic, and she found up in the attic the textbook, Science and Health, and she read it. And it had the same effect on her as it had on Benjamin. She was just blown away by it, and she said, my goodness, this is the truth that I have been searching for all my life. And she read it like a hungry person seeking the truth. The poor in spirit, they're the ones that shall be filled, as the Beatitude says. So a bit later, she went back to the doctors, probably to decide upon when she was going to have an operation or whatever else was happening. And when they examined her again, there was no trace of that cancer. She had been healed by reading the textbook. And each Sunday we hear fruitage of people who have been healed by reading the textbook. It is the truth. So tonight we have been expressing great gratitude for Mrs. Eddy and all she sacrificed to write this book, for its healing power, what it has done to change and heal and revolutionize our lives. I'm also grateful because tonight, for the first time, we've had Jared, our Sunday organist, playing on Wednesday, and we're so grateful to have him here. He's a wonderful, gentle, humble presence. So I'm so grateful for all of you, for this church, and to be here tonight.
Thank you. To close our meeting tonight, Lil, will you please announce the last hymn?
Hymn number 221. O Jesus, our dear Master, thy works now understood reveal their full effulgence through love and brotherhood. Today, Christ's precious science, thy healing power makes plain. With joy may all obey thee and cast out sin and pain. Hymn 221.